So what happens at a federal rearraignment? A federal rearraignment is essentially a plea setting. In other words, the court has a setting where you will come in and enter a plea of guilty. The reason it's called a rearraignment is there would have been an original arraignment. That's a setting where you would have typically entered a plea of not guilty. That would have initiated the process so that your attorney could review the evidence. And if you get to a point where you're deciding to enter a plea, you'll be set for this rearraignment. Now, there are a number of things that happen at the rearraignment. The judge goes into a very long series of questions that essentially ascertains a few things. First of all, the judge wants to make sure you understand what's going on. So the judge will ask background, biographical information, like how far did you go in school? Do you understand the English language? Can you read and write? The judge will then go into issues that might affect your ability to understand what's going on that particular day. So the judge will ask, are you under the influence of any drugs or alcohol? Are you under any medical treatment? Do you have any prescriptions that you're taking? Does any of that affect your ability to understand what's going on? Once the judge is comfortable that you know what's going on and you understand what's going on, the judge will go into the rights that you're giving up. Depending on whether your case was indicted or you're pleading to a case before indictment, the judge will have a different track of questions to follow. So if your case hasn't been indicted, the judge will first tell you you have a right to have your case presented to a grand jury. You don't have to proceed until there is an indictment. There's no guarantee there will be an indictment. The judge will want to make sure that you're willing to enter a plea without an indictment, understanding you could force the prosecutors to go get that indictment. If your case has already been indicted, the judge will make sure that you understand your case has been indicted and the charging document is now an indictment. Whether the charging document is an information, which is before an indictment, or the indictment, the judge will then go into making sure you understand the charge. The judge will ask the prosecutor to read the charge. You can waive the reading of that charge, but the judge will make sure that you understand the elements that a prosecutor would have to prove at a trial. Those are the elements that you're agreeing to when you enter your plea of guilty. The judge will also make sure you understand the consequences of your plea. So do you understand the punishment range that you're facing after this plea? The judge will explain the process of federal sentencing. That is, your case after a plea will get reset so that a pre-sentence report can be prepared, so that your attorney can review it, file objections, file any sentencing materials the attorney wants the court to consider, and then you will be set to come back for a sentencing date. The judge will remind you that no one, your attorney, probation, or even the court, can't tell you what your sentence is actually going to be. You just understand the statutory range that you're facing. So the judge goes through all these things that you need to know before you enter a plea. Additionally, if you're giving up some valuable rights, like your right to appeal, the judge will make sure you understand those rights. If there are immigration consequences to your plea, the judge will go into the fact that a plea could lead to deportation or delay of naturalization. So there could be some implications outside of the criminal courthouse based on this plea that the judge would go into. The judge will remind you, most cases are felonies in federal court, that you'll lose your right to possess firearms, you'll lose your right to vote, and that there's no parole in the federal system. You're essentially going to do most, if not all, of the time that you're sentenced to. So the judge goes into this very long description of the rights that you're giving up, how sentencing works, and what factors will determine when you get out of custody. A rearraignment ends with an order from the court that's going to lay out the schedule for the remainder of that case. So you'll receive a scheduling order that tells you when you should expect to have your pre-sentence investigation done by, when your attorney should file objections, when all the sentencing materials are due, and when you will ultimately come back for sentencing. This video was made in response to a question we received on this channel. If you have a question about criminal law in Texas or federal criminal law, drop a comment below and we'll be sure to answer that. You can also check us out at versestexas.com.